And you're seated at one end of this table, and when you projected this space, when you used Parlay, you were just focusing on the hunger. And what is sitting in this chair at the other end of the room, with his back to that big window, is a man, a human man. And he's got a fairly slim build. He looks to be in his early 50s or so. His salt and pepper hair is extremely well manicured, and his face is smooth. He's wearing a sharp gray suit with a really stylish, narrow black tie and the most expensive pair of shoes you've probably ever seen. He looks really slick. And most of all, he looks surprised.
It's Sterling Cooper.
And he clears his throat, and he tries to speak. But no sound comes out at all. He just kind of croaks. And he tries that a few times and kind of looks exasperated. And then all of a sudden, there's a pitcher of water on the table. And he pours himself a glass, and he takes a drink, and he clears his throat again. And he says, I got to think of what this guy's voice is going to be, because I'm going to be using it a bit.
I'm really embarrassed because I didn't realize Sterling Cooper was the name of the agency.
And not the... Yeah.
Roger Sterling. Anyways, right. I'm going to stick with Sterling Cooper, though.
This very well put together guy says, Okay, this is new. Were you the one that brought me here? Where are we right now?
This is the Parlay Room.
The parlor room?
Yeah, let's go with that. The Parlay Parlor. This is the Parlay Parlor.
I jump into the vision. Merle, why do you sound so weird?
It's the Parlay Parlor.
There we go.
And this is my character voice. I would like to introduce myself.
Yeah, what's your name?
High Church Merle.
Your name's High Church Merle? Oh, you were doing... Okay.
No. And I have to ask, do you mind telling me your name? We have labels, and I assign, labels just from people's actions. It's kind of a thing I do. So what actually is your name?
I don't know that I feel comfortable telling you my name just yet. We've only met, and I sorry, this is really weird. I haven't actually been anywhere in a while, so
sure.
How did you find me? How did you pull me out, I guess?
I have been kind of following your career, following by leading, I guess. And I am, I don't always agree with everything, but I'm kind of a fan. I've been kind of observing, and it's just I really want to get to know you. I think in all walks of life, it's important to know the people that you're dealing with, and so I wanted to get to know you a little bit better. I want to get to know the guy behind the suit, behind the tie, and the really nice footwear.
He kind of chuckles, and as he chuckles, he kind of catches himself. He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I just realized I haven't laughed in a while, or I guess I haven't done anything for a while, for that matter. You're not the first fan I've had, or the first one to approach me. Although it's been a while. Just to check, can I go whenever I want? I think I'm gonna head out. This has been novel, but I can't risk getting caught in some sort of weird pocket dimension.
Listen, I'm not going to hold you here against your will. I don't want, anybody to hang around, but I am offering, kind of a quid pro quo exchange of information. I mean, you must be extremely interested in me and my friends since, you've been hunting us for years and years and years.
I've been hunting you? He says.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think he stands up from the office chair he's sitting in when he says that. What are you talking about?
Well, the thing is, you've kind of been, chasing me and my friends, my family, my team, as we've kind of hopped, skipped, and jumped around to different planes. And so, I just thought maybe you'd like to get to know the guy you're tracking down and actually have killed a buttload of times.
He says, it doesn't seem like it's taken if I've been killing you all these times, but...
Well, I got better.
Well, if I've been hunting you, I don't think I need information. It kind of seems like I've got you right here. And he extends his hand, palm first, and you see this sort of black fire surround his hand, and you feel this incredible pain as black fire spreads throughout your body from your insides out, just killing you in a second. And that, Merle, is how your meeting ended. Your first conversation of many that you would have over the following dozens of cycles with the man who became the Hunger.
Let's get right back in it.
The very next cycle, you are in that space. You are in that high-rise conference room. And this time, when this man sees you at the other end of the table, he, stands up right away, and he says, Okay, interesting. It seems like you were telling the truth. Sorry about killing you before. I needed to know that I could get out of here if I need to. Now I know the rules, and now we can talk, I guess.
And now maybe you have a little bit of an inkling on to how serious I am. You've heard people say, on my life. Well, that's just what I'm doing. This is on my life. So listen, you can kill me anytime you want to, but it's obviously not lasting. And I would think that if you were working so hard to kill me, you would want it to last.
Yeah, that is a good point. Well, I think an exchange of information would be good. Merle, you said?
Actually, I said, hi, Church, Merle, hi, Church. But yeah, Merle.
He sits down and pours himself a glass of water. And says, do you want, you thirsty? I don't know how this works. I don't know if you have thirst wherever we are.
I'm good. I had one of those new blue Mountain Dews right before I came here. Now that we have this kind of this rapport going, now do you trust me enough to tell me your name?
He says, I believe it was John. It's been so long, Merle. You have to understand. I haven't been John for a bit, but probably.
Why is that exactly?
For the sake
what have you been doing all this time when you haven't been John?
He says, if I've been pursuing you, or I guess we've been pursuing you, I think you know what turned out. I'm in an uncomfortable position, Merle, because there's something I want. There's something I'm trying to do, and I've been at it for a long time. But I would be lying if I said I wasn't bored, I guess. And he kind of crosses his fingers and sort of taps his fingers against the table, and he says, it's kind of nice to talk to somebody, so I think we should talk, and I'd like to learn more about your invincibility, and I don't mind sharing a little bit about myself, I suppose, but I need you to understand that there are things that I'm going to do, and there's not much that either of us can do about that to stop it. But as long as we're here, let's talk, sure, and I'll tell the truth, as long as you promise to as well. What do you say? This can be our little truth zone. What do you say, Merle?
Truth zone. I like
zone you've been looking for.
I like it. I have been hunting for just the right zone. Yeah, truth zone. Or we could call it the truthful zone. Or the zone of truthfulnessosity. Yeah, that's it. The zone of truthfulnessosity.
He actually, as you keep going and going and going, he actually, the smile on his face kind of dissipates. And he says, I do need you to understand, though, that I'm not going to stay here for very long. I don't know how this works. I don't know if this is some sort of trap. This isn't a trap, is it, Merle?
I don't think so. I think it's just a couple of guys getting to know each other.
He says, so I'm going to need to take off eventually, but there's no need to think about that now. Let's have a conversation. And
okay, get your shirt off.
he laughs and says, no. The way that I want this to work is we're going to talk, but roll plus heart. And
you said there wasn't any rolling.
You're good at heart, though.
3 and 4 plus 2 is 9.
Okay. With a 9, you can ask John a question. You can ask the hunger a question, and he'll answer it truthfully. He is also going to ask you a question that you must answer truthfully, and both of you will have something at the end of that exchange.
What are you after?
Man,
That's
he's going right for it, huh?
Yeah.
He smiles and says...
No favorite movie? Cake or pie?
He says,
That's number 2 and number 3, thank you.
He says, that's a big question, Merle. I'm after... Well, peace, I suppose. It's oh God, there are so many pieces to this question. I am a man, Merle, who knows the answer to the question of why we're all here. And to be frank, I didn't like it. There are laws and limitations placed on every living thing that they are never made aware of. But once you know them, Merle, once you see them, they are too cruel to bear. And so what I want, Merle, is to grow, I suppose. I take it that you've seen me absorb and expand in the wild. I'm doing this, Merle, not out of spite or malice. I'm doing this to become larger than those limitations can contain, to overtake whatever capricious creator installed those limitations in the first place. That's a long-winded answer, and probably more than you were looking for. I want to grow, Merle.
Uh-oh, guys. He's after sick gains. I was afraid of this.
Oh, no, not like this.
When a bro is after gains, sick gains, there's very little you can do to stop him. I'm pretty worried now.
He says, Merle, I want to know how you keep coming back to life.
I, honest to God, don't know.
Merle.
All right, my turn.
I don't know. He extends his hand, and there's some fire.
No, wait. Hang on there, Rusty.
This agreement won't work unless you tell me the truth also.
That is honest to God the truth. I die, and poof, there's a flash of light, and there I am again.
Where?
We've chosen the perfect person for this. It's like sending a mildly eloquent pinata in.
I don't.
Best of luck.
He says,
trying to get information out of this guy.
He says, when you come back to life, where are you?
It's like this big room, and it's on a ship.
A ship?
Yes.
You're traveling between these worlds on a ship?
I think it's time for me to ask another question.
He says, he looks around, and now he looks kind of nervous, and he says, yeah, I think that's going to have to wait, and he kills you. You're back in that room. It's another cycle. Maybe not the very next one. I guess that's up to you. But again, we're kind of dealing in abstractions. And you're back in that room. And this time he's kind of ready for you. Like, he has 2 glasses of water poured. And he's there before you. And he's like, oh, Merle, hi. Welcome back. I'm sorry about the sort of unpleasantness at the end of the last sort of meeting we had. But maybe we'll do better this time.
John, you got it. Okay.
Roll plus heart.
7 plus 2, it's another 9.
Okay, you know the deal. Ask him a question, he gets to ask you one.
So, you keep saying we, but then sometimes you say I. What's the deal with that, John?
He says, oh, another tough one, but I did tell you I'd answer honestly. I am John, and I am me. I was a human. I still am, I suppose, somewhere in here. I'm a public speaker. I was one, a successful one, too, if memory serves. And people from around the world would come to hear my speeches and my message, and I would delight in their adulation, and I would preach understanding and the pursuit of enlightenment and the broadening of personal horizons. I'm kind of a big picture guy, Merle. And I suppose when I say we, I'm talking about everyone in here. It's weird, Merle. I've never talked to anybody about this outside. Usually my transactions with other people are, adding them to my being.
Yeah.
So I don't...
It feels good, doesn't it? It feels good, doesn't it?
I've been apparently pursuing you for a while. What do you call me?
Is that your question?
I don't need to know it. I just suppose I was looking for a way to make this conversation more convenient.
Sure.
For my question, Merle, I would ask, what does your ship look like?
I should know that.
You can just say, like, I answer. Like, we don't, obviously everybody listening at home has, like, heard this before. And so we don't, like, have to necessarily play out your side. If you just want to say, I tell them what the ship looks like, that's fine.
You, Clint, don't know, but Merle definitely
in it
knows. And next to it many times.
For like
I go into great detail. I grab a cocktail napkin and I draw a fucking sketch for him.
Okay.
He's wowed by it. How's that?
He takes that sketch and he says, wow, this is great, thanks. I don't think I can bring this out of here with me, but,
Oh, sorry. Well, it's a visual aid. It's like, when you teach school.
He says, this is really helpful. I'm going to, he looks at his watch and he says, I'm going to check in on this, and I guess I'll talk to you in a year, hopefully. And he kills you. You're back in that space, Merle, and...
Hey, listen, John, in the spirit of cooperation, why don't you ask me first? It's always me asking first. That seems a little rude. I'm your host. You're my guest.
Okay.
You ask first.
He says, all right, that's only fair, I guess. Roll plus art for me.
7 plus 2. I have rolled 3 7s in a row. 7 plus 2 is 9.
Number,
Statistically, the most likely number, yeah. He says, okay, I'll go first. You're the ones who've been collecting the light of creation and getting it away from me, aren't you?
Yes.
I have to say, Merle, that's pretty vexing. I would appreciate it if you wouldn't do that anymore. I suppose that this is not a plea that you're going to take seriously, but it's very inconvenient for me.
Okay. Why?
Is that your question?
Yeah.
He says, what I am... What do you... Just tell me what you call me. It's going to make this so much easier.
No.
Okay.
I asked a question.
How should I explain this? No two things can occupy the same space, Merle. But that is exactly what I am. I am a bunch of places in the same place, on top of and within and without one another. When I consume a plane, I tie it on, so to speak. Its bonds become my bonds, and that alone is enough to sustain me. Everything about that process betrays the laws of physics and mathematics and arcane interactions, and the light of creation is what makes that process possible. And he smiles and he says, I don't mean to be vain, but I must look beautiful from your perspective. All those countless worlds' bonds just streaming off of me, it must be a sight to behold. I need that light to accomplish my goals, and when you keep it from me, it is... Well, Merle, it's... I can't let it keep happening for much longer, and he kills you. And so this is forward a lot. This is like a lot of cycles forward, and obviously we're going to hop back into the place that we were when we start playing the rest of this game.
Okay.
But you're back in this space, and you've
Johnny!
seen... Yeah,
Johnny boy!
It's been a couple dozen times. He has a chessboard set out. It seems like he can kind of like make things in this space to make himself sort of more comfortable. And so you talk to him, and you're like... It's... Obviously, there's animosity between the two of you, right? Because he's been killing you all these times, and he is this supernatural force that is pursuing you, but he sort of lets on that, like, this is also the only time he ever talks to anybody or exists as John, and so, like, he kind of looks forward to it a little bit. He tells you that. And so this is a conversation that you have, and roll plus heart.
Come on, baby. Come on, baby. Look, there's got to be some reward for throwing 4 7s in a row.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah,
you get a 7.
You get out of jail free. He says, "Can I?" You guys are playing, and actually, roll plus mind real quick.
8
Plus anything?
plus 1 is 9.
Wow, unbelievable. You guys get each other in stalemate, or no? I just he puts you in stalemate, and says, "Oh shoot, I thought I had you that time." All right,
I thought you had me too, you rascal.
he says, "Do you mind if I go first?"
No, go ahead.
He takes a big drink of water. The curiosity's killing me, and I know this isn't going to be very helpful in sort of my means, but what do you call me, Merle? What do you all call me?
Oh, we call you a lot of things that you probably don't want to be repeated. Taco says you're gauche. I don't even know what gauche means. He says you're gauche.
What do you...
and I call you something completely differently now than I did before.
He says, well, that's nice to hear, but before, like, was there a name for what I am? Like, it would be
You
good...
mean before I got to know you?
Yeah, it would be good just for, I guess, for me to know what I am. What do you call me?
Well, I used to call you the Hunger.
He kind of laughs. The Hunger.
Yeah.
He says, I kind of like that.
I thought you might.
Maybe a little inaccurate. What? Is there something you want to know, Merle?
Yeah. There is something I'd like to know. Are you my friend?
Not what I was expecting.
But very fucking good. Give me a minute. I'm reeling a little bit. The smile drops from his face. And he stands up. And I think he reaches out his hand with the fire. But he pulls it back down. And he kind of shakes his head and he says, what am I doing? And he looks out the window for like a minute without talking. And he turns back to you and says, to have friendship, Merle, it requires you to love someone and be invested in your shared happiness. And these things, Merle, friendship and love and happiness, they're all so small. In the grand scheme of things, Merle, they last a second. And I just don't... What brings you happiness, Merle? I know the game is over, but what brings you joy, Merle? Please, give me this freebie. Just tell me.
What brings me joy is life. I think you can find joy anywhere in life. I think it's a conscious choice. I think you choose joy in life. And no matter how bad things are, no matter how crummy, no matter how dark, no matter how many times some guy named John kills your ass,
he chuckles.
You find joy. I've found joy, honest to God, getting to know you. I've found joy playing chess with you. I haven't enjoyed, getting my ass killed, but I find joy whatever I do. I don't always do things right, and I don't always do things smart, and I don't always do a character voice. But whatever I do, I find joy in it, because at the end of the day, that's all you got. It's looking back on the joy you had and the joy you found and the joy you gave other people.
I think his back is turned to you for most of this as he just kind of looks out the window and he says, I think there was probably a time where I had joy, where I experienced fleeting happiness or anger or fear, but God, it's just been so long, Merle. I used to spend my days considering the nature of time and existence. Maybe that brought me joy once, but unlike everybody else who ever thought about those questions, who ever pondered the meaning of it all, and you may find this hard to believe, but I solved it, Merle. I saw the fullness of time. I pondered eternity and was the first person and only person to successfully visualize its treacherous arc. He sits back down across the chessboard from you and he says, "You're a man of the cloth, Merle. Certainly you've wondered too about what awaits our consciousness after death," and he laughs. He says, "What am I saying? I've given you a first-hand experience a few times in this very room." And he says, perhaps for some people who think about it, there's nothing but infinite oblivion, the eternal erasure of your consciousness. Or for some, it's eternal life in their God's glorious kingdom, or eternal cycling through all the inhabitants of their world. Any of these options, Merle, any of them are just erasure or contentment or revival. Any of them are fine as abstract concepts. But eternally, Merle, eternally? You can't possibly conceive of the length of eternity, Merle. I have. It's maddening and hopeless, but it's this burden we're all saddled with from the moment of our creation. It's a finish line that, by its definition, will never arrive. It stretches forever and ever. It's too ambivalent to even taunt those trapped behind it. It is the cruel price of existence, Merle, and it is too horrible to bear once you've seen it. Existence, Merle, life, Merle, is horrible. To exist, to live, is horrible. And he kind of chuckles and realizes he got a little carried away there.
I don't think I want to hang out with you anymore, John. I think I'm going to take off. And you can continue wallowing in your sadness and your oblivion and seeing nothing but the negative, and I'm going to go on my way. And I tell you what, if we ever meet each other somewhere in infinity, you can apologize to me and tell me you were wrong.
He chuckles a little bit, and he turns towards you and he says, "I'm sorry you feel that way. You're the first person who I've sort of talked about this to who hasn't listened. Everyone listened, Merle. I'm not being hyperbolic. Every person in the world was swayed. I don't know why you're different, but everyone else listened. Everyone across our whole plane of existence. Our shared vexation with life covered the world like a blanket, and soon every bird in the sky and every tree and every forest and every blade of grass and grain of sand shared our fury, and it wasn't long before it changed us." And I think as he's talking, Merle, you see this scene outside, this constant orange sunset start to turn inky and black with these colorful ribbons of light that you've seen inside the Hunger so many times. And he says, "We changed our entire plane into something new altogether, a single being fueled by discontentment, searching for something bigger than this existence regardless of the cost." He turns towards you and he says, "You call us the Hunger. That's not entirely inaccurate, because we are hungry. But it would be more accurate to simply call us dissatisfaction. But soon," and he holds up his hand and says, "you will call us ascendant."
Well, we'll see. John, thanks for the chess game, and kiss my ass, you sanctimonious bastard.
He frowns and says, "Huh, I feel sad." And he kills you.
So we hear about this from Merle, and he tells us the whole thing. Well, I got bad news for everybody. Our arch nemesis is Morrissey. So We have that to deal with now, apparently. John Morrissey. Is our arch nemesis. Perfect.
And Merle, you don't see Magnus either, and you also don't see the elevator. What you see is a small round table made of smooth black marble, and 2 high-backed chairs positioned on either side of it. And you don't seem to be standing in any kind of discernible room. Rather, in every direction, there are just rippling walls of the same black opal material that makes up the hunger. And sitting on that marble table is a chess set. And suddenly, there's John. And he's different. When you had parlay with him in the past, he was essentially a regular human man, but now he's torn and cracked with rifts of black opal tearing down his face and body, and you can feel a faint heat coming off of him. And he pulls out the chair on his side of the table and he says, "Hi, Merle. You got a minute?" Merle, you are in this black space, standing in front of a black marble table with 2 high-backed chairs, and on that table is a chess set. The walls and floors and ceiling of this space, it's just all hunger. And sitting in a chair on his side of the table is John, who, again, looks not great. His body is sort of covered in these colorful rifts, kind of like the stuff you see all over. And John says, "What happened to your eye, Merle? Gods, what happened to your arm?"
Well, I was just going to say, what happened to your complexion?
He says, "I guess we both look a little worse for wear right now, huh?" And he motions,
I don't know. I kind of like how I look. You look like, oh, God, like puke.
He laughs and he motions to the chair on the other side of the table from him and says, "Will you sit?"
Yeah, sure. If I can reach it.
You sit down. It's actually surprisingly comfortable for a black marble chair. And he says, "I want to apologize in advance for being out of conversational practice. The last conversation that we had was the last conversation that I had altogether. So, it's good to see you again."
Well, thanks, John. How long ago was that conversation?
He says, I don't actually know the answer to that question. You had that last conversation, and we had it on the podcast, where John kind of laid out how he got to be the way he is, and then you said, "Fuck this," and stopped, like, going to meet him. I don't know if that was close to the end of the century, or if it wasn't. I leave that up to you. Was that closer to, like, the end of your 100 years, or was it, or was there, like, a break?
I kind of thought it
stopped?
was, like, 3/4 of the way in.
Okay, yeah, I sort of figured that was the case. So, yeah, it's probably been, like, about 30 years then, including the, like, decade where you were in this world. And he explains that to you, and he says, I've got to know, Merle, how'd you pull it off? How did you hide it from me for so long?
Hide what, Johnny boy?
The light. Merle, please don't do that. The light of creation. I couldn't find it for over a decade, Merle. It was a bad situation. How did you manage to hide it for that long?
We were just really tricky, really cunning. And, hell, John, I don't know. I don't know what the hell we did. I barely remember where I went to the bathroom last. I don't know what we did with the light.
He kind of senses that you're being a little coy, and his smile fades a little bit, and he says, "Merle, you should know I'm not really in charge here anymore. When the hunger stopped being fed, its priorities changed. It's not a sentient being looking for ascension anymore, looking to surpass existence and the rules that government. It's just hungry. The purpose that brought my world together and turned it into this, it doesn't care about that purpose anymore, Merle. It just wants to consume. And it's not going to keep me around for much longer, Merle. I failed it for over a decade. It's not just going to let that pass. I don't want you to keep any secrets from me, Merle. I didn't bring you here to pump you for information. I genuinely just brought you here because I needed to say goodbye to someone. I genuinely just want to chat.
Is that what's going on with these rifts in your face? This boss of yours is messing you up like that?
He says, indirectly, I suppose, yes.
Well, let me help you. Well, wait, when I had magic, I could have helped you, but, I don't have magic anymore.
He smiles and he says, that's very kind of you, old friend. I'm glad to hear you say that, actually. I didn't know how this meeting was going to go. You know the rules of parlay. I brought you here. And so I suppose you could have killed me if you wanted to. And as he says that, bright white eyes appear all over the walls and floor and ceiling, and they're all like staring furiously down at John. And he clams up for a second and he says, I guess that they would prefer that you didn't kill me. Can we just talk? Can you tell me a story about your life, Merle? Tell me anything. Maybe we can play another game. And the chess pieces move into the starting position. He says, just tell me anything about the last decade, Merle. We have so much to catch up on.
Well, okay. I'll do that. Who goes first?
He takes a white piece and a black piece in his hand and offers them to you.
Okay, I'll take the white piece.
And he says, you go first. Tell me something about your life, Merle.
All right, John, I'll tell you something. I got a couple of kids.
He laughs and he says, you, Merle, have kids.
I got kids. I do. I got kids.
He's like laughing about that as you sort of take your first couple of moves and he takes a couple of moves. And, really quickly, like, he is adopting like a really strange strategy. He's just like trying to get his king out of the back line as quickly as possible and moving it into the fray. And you've played chess with him a couple dozen times, and like, this is not great chess strategy, and you've never like seen him fuck up this bad before. And he says, how old are they? That sounds wonderful.
Mavis and Mookie, girl and a boy. Mavis is, teenage-ish. And Mookie is younger than that. I'm not real good yet at the, dad thing. But, I'm learning. I'm getting better about it.
He says, I'm not worried about you, Merle. You'll get there. And as he says that...
Maybe not.
As he says that, he moves the king to capture one of your pawns. And as he does, you see these faint threads of light come off of the king and like ensnare the pawn, and it pulls it into its mass. It pulls this pawn into the king piece. And as the pawn's form disappears into the king, those threads remain, now just bound around the king piece. And as this peculiar scene unfolds, John is just staring at you intensely, Merle. Merle, you're still playing this chess game, and it's still weird. And John says, so, what's it like being a dad? And he takes another piece with his king as he says that, and that scene replays. It consumes the bishop he takes, and another thread of light appears and is tied around the king piece.
It's pretty great, John. There's something that is so indescribable about being part of bringing a new life into the world. It really is something you can't describe to anybody else. But to be responsible for a new consciousness, a new soul, and then, to help that consciousness and that soul become what it's supposed to become. It's the best. I didn't realize it for a real long time. Wasn't really good at it. But once I realized that this was like this tremendous gift that I got twice, loved it.
He says, I thought for a while about having some kids of my own, but...
Oh, why didn't you?
Well, the whole, And he looks down and he says, I had other priorities. And he takes another piece with the king, and he takes another pawn, and it's pulled inside the king, and another thread of light is tied around the king. And every time he does this, Merle, like, he is just like, you can see him just like barely like nodding his head and like looking down at the piece and then back at you and then back at the piece as he does it. He says, I guess I've got like a billion kids if you want to think about the hunger that way. And he takes another piece. And as he takes a piece this time and actually mentions the hunger by name, those eyes appear again, and they are now just watching the two of you and your game very, very, very closely.
Well, John, you want to share a little bit about yourself with me? Tell me a little story about yourself. I mean, that's what friends do. We exchange stories. I exchange a story about kids. You know, you haven't really told me much about what you did before you were, you know, a world-crushing avatar for a gigantic evil force. You know, what did you do for a living?
Well, I was a motivational speaker, Merle,
Right.
and Merle, he is fucking staring at you, and he says, I told people what they needed to hear. And as he says that, one of your pieces moves of its own volition and approaches John's king. It's a knight. And as the knight moves towards the king, the piece actually animates. And there's a mounted rider on a horse, and this rider raises a sword and rakes it across the king and cuts all of those glowing threads that are surrounding the king. And suddenly John's king explodes, and all of the pieces that it had consumed come flying out of it and go scattering across the table. And when that happens, the room around you screams, and those eyes start burning, and they're squinting with rage, and suddenly hands attached to these long arms appear from the walls and the floor. And John stands up from his chair with a start, but he's too late. These hands are just tearing at him, and those rifts all over his body start to expand. And a group of arms reach up and grab his legs and start to pull him down into the floor. And he's screaming and he's reaching for you, Merle. What do you do?
I wrap my arms around him. I run to him. I grab him, throw my arms around his chest, lock my hands behind his back, and try to pull him out.
All right. You wrap your arms around John, and unintentional or no, are giving him this embrace as you try to pull him up and out of the ground as these hands keep pulling him. But the hands just have him. There's so many. They're so strong. And his waist is in the ground, and his stomach and chest, and he's trying to keep himself out with his arms, but there are arms grabbing his arms and pulling those down into the ground. And just before he disappears, his eyes meet yours, and he's inches from you, Merle, and you hear him whisper, "Break the bonds, Merle. Break." And then he's gone. And the eyes all around the room turn towards you. Merle, the white light starts to dissipate. And as it does, you find yourself standing on a beach at sunset. And there's a cool, gentle breeze coming up the coast as the tide rolls out, and the last of the sun's light retreats past the horizon. And sitting on his suit jacket, with his shoes off and his pant legs rolled up, with his feet in the sand facing the ocean, is John. And he's human again. And he pats the ground next to him, and he says, "Merle, will you sit with me? Just for a moment?"
You got it, buddy.
You go and you move over to him, and he says, "We don't have to talk. Let's just watch this together." And you sit there for a minute watching the tide pull pull further and further away as the water rolls gently onto the shore. And the sun drops further and further behind the sea, and then the final sliver of sunlight is gone. And so is John.